Good afternoon. Let us begin by having a time of quiet meditation as we prepare for an amazing afternoon of worship through music. What a great way to start an afternoon. My name is Carrie Rushing. I'm the Director of Music here at First Presbyterian Church Greenville, and I'd like to welcome you all here this afternoon. Several years ago, Brad Collier and I started doing this annual hymn festival for a couple of reasons. For one reason, it is a fundraiser for Presbyterian Association of Musicians. Our congregation sponsors the children's choir music packets for the Worship and Music Conference each year. And this event raises money toward that. We'll talk more about that later. The second reason is that we get to invite our friends from Montreat here to worship with us and to make music and to share with our congregation just a little piece of what we get to experience each summer at Montreat. The wonderful thing about this type of hymn festival is that doing each of the readings will be some of our congregation's participants from the Montreat and Worship and Music Conference through the years, both children, youth, and adults. We like to do this because it's fun. It involves all age groups in leadership of worship, which the Presbyterian Association of Musicians and First Presbyterian Church Greenville all feel is really important. How will this work today? Well, you have a bulletin, and we're not going to announce the hymns. We are going to go right through. We're going to stand in body or spirit each time that we sing, and every single note that we sing together will be a prayer. It will be worship, and we will do it as one voice together. I'm particularly thrilled this weekend that our very good friend Phillip Morgan has been able to join us. You can read a lot of his accolades in his biography that's in the bulletin, but what you can't read is how much that he's meant to us through the years. We met Phillip years ago when Brad actually took one of his classes at the conference, and Brad said, "Do you know Phillip? We need to know him. He's a great guy, and he knows a lot of things." And then we got to know him through the years, and just a couple years ago, my phone rang, and he said, "Hey, Carrie, it's Phillip. We want you to be on the board of the Presbyterian Association of Musicians." And then I said, "Are you sure?" But he and I have journeyed through all that together, and we actually are going to be the co-directors for the Worship and Music Conference in 2023, which is a great honor, and he's a fantastic partner in crime for that. I cannot wait for you to experience what we have known about Phillip for a real long time this afternoon. With that, I'm going to turn it over. He has a few words before we actually start about the hymn festival.
First, good afternoon and welcome, and I am so glad to be with you all here in First Pres Greenville, and I have to start with a word of thanks to your lovely staff who have played host to me this weekend. Yes, they are friends, but they are also gracious hosts and ambassadors of your community here, and so I want to thank them. This afternoon, what we're doing is a hymn festival. It is not a concert. You will be very tempted to sit back and listen to the choir sing some wonderful music for you, and for me to play some mediocre piano. But this works better if you will stand and sing. That is the way this afternoon has been designed. And with that in mind, I will tell you that all of the things we are singing are born of an oral tradition. They are songs that are handed down not through hymn books, but through singing them to one another. The very first hymn we'll sing was actually my grandmother's favorite, and it is the one that I say started me on a journey to learning to play gospel music. So I had been studying Mozart and Chopin, and I had gotten, well, okay. I thought I was excellent. And I had been charged with now playing the piano at church, which meant that I had to learn a new body of songs that had not been printed and were not part of my experience at the keyboard until that point. And one Saturday, as I was reading through the hymnal that lived on our piano, I began to play Sweet, Sweet Spirit by Doris Akers. It was not something we sang often, but I soon learned that it was special to my grandmother. And I learned that because she stopped washing the dishes in the kitchen next to the piano and came and stood there and said, "That's not how that song goes. You're playing that wrong." And I argued with her about how Mrs. Leach had taught me to read every note on that page and that I was doing exactly what it said. She said, "That's cool. I paid for the lessons. You're playing that song wrong." And over the next few years, those moments of her coming in and saying, "It's not quite how that goes. Let me sing it for you." She handed them down to me as they were meant to be handed. So my advice to you today is to listen to your ears more and trust your eyes a little less. There will be moments when you go, "I don't think that's how that goes." I assure you my grandmother will come back and get me in my sleep if I don't do it right. Feel free to clap. Clapping in music for the African American tradition is important. Please clap on beats 2 and 4. If you're unsure, nobody's going to come and get you, but somebody might look at you odd. It might be me from the piano. Clapping during music is a part of what Africans brought here from their drumming in Africa. It is not the same as applause. This afternoon, you will be tempted to respond to the music in some way. I encourage you to experiment with that. I encourage you to use an expression of gratitude and faithfulness that is something like you would expect to see in a worship service and less at a Jimmy Buffett concert. Amen, hallelujah, clapping your hands in a rhythmic way are perfectly acceptable. Woo-hoo is not the best option. Don't laugh at me. A couple of specific notes, and I'll give you more as we sing some of these songs. You will be probably very confused during Precious Lord. It's okay. I invite you to sing what you are hearing, and if you don't know what you're about to hear and don't know what to sing, sing anyway. It's okay. That is really the Black experience. You would never hear a congregation of African Americans all singing the words of Precious Lord exactly at the same time, because decent and in order is not written on our tombstones. I hope that you will enjoy this afternoon's hymn festival and experience something unlike what you've experienced before. I also invite you to remain seated through Precious Lord, and if you can't sing, just sway. But stay seated for that hymn. I think with that, we can begin to sing. I invite you to stand and sing at this point my grandmother's favorite hymn, "There's a Sweet, Sweet Spirit."
Good afternoon. Long after Abraham and Sarah's bones had turned to dust, their descendants ended up in Egypt again. The cow paths they followed in that land led straight from their slave huts to the mud pits where they made bricks. They always knew where their next meal was coming from. They never had to wonder what they were going to do in the morning. The cost of such security was their bondage to Pharaoh, who was happy with their labor but not with their birth rate. When Pharaoh started ordering midwives to kill Hebrew baby boys, God's ears rang with the wailing outcry of the people. They cried and cried until God chose a fugitive named Moses, who had narrowly escaped being one of those dead babies himself, to lead the people out of Egypt. The people were so happy to leave that they did not ask for any details. As it turned out, they needed 40 years in the wilderness to learn the holy art of being lost. They faced not just snakes, but also hunger, thirst, and terrible homesickness. Did I mention the wrath of God? There was also that. When they complained bitterly that they would trade their sacred lostness in a red-hot minute for a cow path straight back to Egypt. They did not get it, thank God. Instead, they got food dropped straight from heaven in the wilderness. They got snake bites. They got fresh water that sprang from rocks. They got whacked when they decided a golden calf was a safer bet for getting them back on track again than the God who sometimes seemed intent on destroying them. But God did not destroy them. Instead, God strengthened that wilderness gene in them, the one that made them strong and resourceful, even as it reminded them how perishable they were. By the time they arrived in the land of milk and honey, they knew how to say thank you and mean it.
It is a simple truth. Only open hands can give and receive. Hands that are clutching, grasping, or clenched, cannot caress, cannot help, cannot dip water from the stream. Hearts that are bound by fear, mistrust, and pride cannot play, cannot exult, cannot drink from rivers of delight. Minds that are ossified by ideologies, doctrines, and certainties cannot create, cannot listen, cannot understand. And so we must let go. And the young man went away with deep sadness, for he had many possessions. And so we must take leave. Let the dead bury the dead. And so we must suffer loss. Leave all and follow me. Then we can receive truth, wisdom, divinity. And then we can give honesty, openness, compassion. It is a simple truth. Only open hands can give and receive.
Jesus was going through the city of Jericho. In Jericho, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a wealthy, very important tax collector. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but he was too short to see above the crowd. He ran ahead to a place he knew Jesus would come. He climbed a sycamore tree so he could see Jesus. When Jesus came to that place, he looked up and saw Zacchaeus in the tree. He told him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down. I must stay at your home today." Zacchaeus came down quickly. He was pleased to have Jesus in his house. All the people saw this and began to complain. "Look at the kind of man Jesus stays with. Zacchaeus is a sinner." But Zacchaeus said to the Lord, "I will give half my money to the poor. If I have cheated anyone, I will pay that person back 4 times more." Jesus said, "Salvation has come to this house today. This man truly belongs to the family of Abraham. The Son of Man came to find lost people and save them."
Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. See, on the portals he's waiting and watching for you and for me. Come on, come on. Ye who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, O sinner, come home. Why should we tarry when Jesus is pleading, pleading for you and for me? Why should we linger and heed not his mercies, mercy for you and for me? Come home, come home, ye who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, O sinner, come home. Time is now fleeting, the moments are passing, passing from you and from me. Storm clouds are gathering, have sinned, Jesus offers us pardon, pardon for you and for me. Come home, ye who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, O sinner, come home.
There is no stillness in life, but what one holds in the heart. There is no peace, but what one has in the soul. There is no calm in life, but what one finds in God. God has not promised us security. God has not promised us certainty. God has not promised us freedom from sorrow, freedom from suffering, or freedom from pain. Life is a journey through all of these. But what God has promised is God. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. What God has promised is God. Have no fear.
This thing don't work if you got me. So I think there's only 4 verses, right? Soon, very soon. But we say that. We say that. No more crying, no more dying. It's alphabetical. C, D. Now put your hymnal down. Keep your flag red. I promise you that these Presbyterian stones will remain if your flag is red. Soon and very soon. And if you don't think you've got that go, wait till about the 3rd verse and jump in. Let another brother or sister in Christ carry your weight. Y'all got to put your folders down too. Cry and die. You got it.
I warned y'all it was going to be fun. From Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. We are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. Their lives tell us what faith means. So let us run the race that is before us and never give up. We should remove from our lives anything that would get in the way, and we should remove the sin that so easily catches us. Let us look only to Jesus. He is the one who began our faith, and he makes our faith perfect. You may notice the thread that is running through the theme of the readings and the hymns are all about journey. And part of our journey is going to our heavenly home, but part of our journey is walking with one another. Both are important, and we are called to both.
Esther chapter 4, verses 9 through 16. Hatak went back and reported to Esther everything Mordecai had said. Then Esther told Hatak to say to Mordecai, All the royal officers and people of the rural areas know this. No man or woman may go to the king in the inner courtyard without being called. There is only one law about this. Anyone who enters must be put to death. But if the king holds out his gold scepter, that person may live. And I have not been called to go to the king for 30 days. And Esther's message was given to Mordecai. Then Mordecai gave orders to say to Esther, "Just because you live in the king's palace, don't think that out of all the Jews you alone will escape. You might keep quiet all this time, then someone else will help and save the Jews. But you and your father's family will all die. And who knows, you may have been chosen queen for just such a time as this." Then Esther sent this answer to Mordecai, "Go and get all the Jews in Susa together. For my sake, give up eating. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night and day. And I and my servant girls will also give up eating. Then I'll go to the king even though it is against the law. And if I die, I die."
Not everyone is able to walk, but most people can, which makes walking one of the most easily available spiritual practices of all. All it takes is the decision to walk with some awareness, both of who you are and what you are doing. Where you are going is not as important, however counterintuitive that may seem. To detach from walking from the destination is, in fact, one of the best ways to recognize the altars you are passing right by all the time. Most of us spend so much time thinking about where we have been or where we are supposed to be that we have a hard time recognizing where we actually are. When someone asks us where we want to be in our lives, the last thing that occurs to us is to look down at our feet and say, "Here, I guess, since this is where I am."
I have been blessed to go to the Montreat Worship and Music Conference 4 times. I was part of the initial group of youth from our church to attend the conference. Because of the support of members of First Presbyterian Church, we are able to come together with other Presbyterians from across the Southeast and be exposed to new methods of worship through music. We are then able to return to Greenville and share what we have learned with our congregation. In our church services here, we have implemented a few of the commonly sung hymns from Montreat. Throughout the week-long conferences, relationships are formed, friends are made, and your faith is strengthened. Participants in the conference are able to choose from a variety of classes, such as drama class, handbells, and instrumental ensemble. My favorite class at Montreat was Introduction to Organ. We met at the Chapel of the Prodigal and were taught the basics about the parts of the organ, like the manuals, stops, and pedals. We were also taught to play simple pieces on the organ. Hiking to the top of Lookout with the rest of the group is always a highlight of the week. Nowhere do I feel closer to God than in Montreat. A reading from 1 John chapter 4, verses 7 through 12. My beloved friends, let us continue to love each other, since love comes from God. Everyone who loves is born of God and experiences a relationship with God. The person who refuses love doesn't know the first thing about God, because God is love. So you can't know him if you don't know love. This is how God showed his love for us. God sent his only Son into the world so we might live through him. This is the kind of love we are talking about. Not that we once upon a time loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as a sacrifice to clear away our sins and the damage they've done to our relationship with God. My dear, dear friends, if God loved us like this, we certainly ought to love each other. No one has seen God, ever, but if we love one another, God dwells deep within us, and his love becomes complete in us, perfect love.
Number one, this is my favorite hymn, so y'all come right with this. Number two, notice that there are instructions for each verse. Stanza 2 is just the lower voices, tenors and basses, sing just stanza 2. And then on stanza 4, just higher voices, unchanged voices, and sopranos and altos. Everyone sing all the refrains with feeling. We're feeling it. That was good. I told you we would come back around to the fundraising part, and this is it. So the youth that have helped out as readers today and some of our future youth that are going to Montreat soon are going to make their way out and get ready. And they're going to be out with the plates as you leave. As I mentioned, we are taking this to sponsor the music packets for every member of the children's choir for the Worship and Music Conference for both weeks of the conference. You may or may not know that this Worship and Music Conference is the largest annual gathering of Presbyterians in the United States. I mean, they have General Assembly, but that's every other year. This is the largest annual gathering of Presbyterians. The reason that our church chose to sponsor the children's choir packets was because our youth and children have gotten so much from this conference. It's been amazing to see them go. Some of them not quite even sure they want to go, but their parents signed them up. And they come back, and they're leaders. You've seen it today. We're not training our replacements. We like to say that. We're training our replacements. That's not what we're doing. We are empowering our young people to be leaders in the church right now because they are. Because they are. After Phillip and Brad play their last duet, which you're going to want to sit for a second and just take it all in, I'll tell you. As you exit, the young folks are going to be out there. The cost of the packets in total is $1,500. I will tell you that the last time we had one of these fundraisers, we actually paid for the packets, and you guys raised $508 that went toward the scholarship fund to help youth, children, and adults who can't afford to go to the conference. I'm just saying. I know y'all. I know y'all. This is something that's not only made a difference in the life of individuals in our congregation, but it's made a difference in the life of our congregation. And we thank you for supporting that year after year after year. Now, buckle up.